so I don't want to. I have it. Ready?
You ready, Destiny?
One moment. We need to talk about that master plan of ours. Momento. There's no way
To just commercial.
remove it.
We're good? All right. We'd like to welcome everybody out to the, what day is today? Thursday, November 4th, Harriman City Planning Commission, our regular Planning Commission meeting. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance that'll be led by Mr. John Thornton. There you are. Thank you. Come on up and lead us in the pledge. Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Appreciate that. We do have a full quorum tonight. We do have one alternate as well sitting with us. And item 2.3, just want to find out if there are any conflicts of interest with the Planning Commission and on tonight's agenda. Very good. So we'll move on to item 2.4, which is an approval of our meeting minutes for the July 15th Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion for approval? I wasn't at that one. I'm chairing anyway. I can't approve it.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my computer up.
No, you're fine. Nobody wants to approve them?
So moved.
All right. We've got a motion by Andrea and a second by Adam. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Very good. Man, that was like pulling teeth. We need Chris back here to get these things rolling.
One of those nights.
Might be
We were
one
just
of
trying
those
to make
nights.
you sweat, sorry.
That's all good. All right, we'll move on to item 3.1, which is request for conditional use approval for a commercial site for the Midas Crossing retail subdivision. Looks like Sheldon will be presenting this one.
Good evening. So as Andy did mention, this is a conditional use request for a site plan approval for phase 2 of the Midas Crossing Retail Commercial Center. Let's see here, go to this one. The site here is located off 126, right there, about the Auto Mall District. The site here, it's a portion of Phase 2 of the Midas Crossing retail subdivision. This project entails these 7 parcels here. This is kind of an overlay of what the applicant is proposing. What they're looking to do is construct 3 drive-through restaurants and some parking associated with those drive-throughs to accommodate cross-access parking to obviously to facilitate parking for specifically Java Express, which is lot 5. We'll go back here too. So in addition, obviously, to the Quenchit, the Seven Brothers, and the Java Express, which are the 3 drive-through restaurants, lot 7, a portion of that parcel will be developed for parking, and a portion of lot 11 will be as well. I guess one of the proposed retail stores here is Quenchit. This is their elevations they submitted. They do comply with the city standards here. There's Seven Brothers, and we have Java Express as well. These are the color boards of Java Express. They do represent the materials and colors of the actual building that's been being proposed, but they're not consistent with what was submitted, so we're just asking that that's part of one of the recommendations that they submit color boards and material boards that are consistent with what their drawings. So some issues that still need to be addressed, I guess, with this project are some landscaping. They need to install, well, they're proposing turf grass here in this park strip that does not meet our water efficiency standards, so that is something that will need to be corrected moving forward on this project. The applicant is also requesting they're reducing their landscape buffer on Lot 5 there where Java Express is. The city requires 20 feet, but they can reduce that to 15 feet if they install a 2-foot berm, and that's what they're proposing to do. Their concern was they didn't want to lose any drive access there for their drive up. Some other issues that we needed to address was traffic circulation on the site. The site they are providing 113 stalls for this overall development here. What they're proposing here is that they're proposing an additional 2 drive-through, drive-up restaurants, and then a retail component, general retail component. That requirement for that site would be 106 stalls, so they are slightly overparked. Another issues that we ran into, we had concerns with was site circulation. Particularly Seven Brothers and Java Express. Our concern was that if the drive-through queues backed up, they would begin blocking drive aisles. At that point, we asked the applicant to produce commission a parking drive-through study showing how, what expectations they would have in these the queues for these drive-ups. Quenchit, they're providing 9 parking stalls. 9 spaces of storage for their drive up. The parking study found that through their observations, 3 was about the most they saw. But they said if there was an instance where it did back up, they obviously had that alignment there with that drive aisle on the west side of the parking area there where some cars could back up. Seven Brothers, they again have 9 stalls of reserve of storage for their drive-through. The parking, the drive-through study indicated that they were right at that maximum, and they were concerned that if traffic did back up, it would block that drive aisle. So part of the recommendation was to have additional reserved parking stalls reserved in the parking area for drive-through patrons. Once they place their orders, they could park in those areas and hopefully mitigate any traffic backing up into those drive aisles. Again, that was another concern with Java Express. They're actually there, obviously there's a drive aisle there that connects strictly off Harriman Automobile Row. So they could pose some potential issues there. The traffic study, the drive-through study, their observations showed that no more than 12 cars they were observing through their studies. Java Express is providing 14 storage spaces there on that site. In addition to this parking study, we did ask the applicant, and part of the drive-through study, I kept mixing those words up, but each of the tenants were to produce a statement on how they would manage their drive-through queues. Each one of those tenants did produce a statement. Basically, what they would state if the queues did load up, that they would have people out there to take orders and direct traffic or direct patrons to the parking areas. Over the parking study, the Java Express had the least amount of concern through that study due to the efficiency of how they take orders and their short durations of order times, I guess. Again, I spoke with those. So they are providing 3 additional reserved parking spots in the parking area there to help accommodate any overflow parking, specifically for Seven Brothers. And again, Java Express is providing 14 stalls, and as I mentioned earlier, the study observed only about a maximum of 12 cars at those drive-throughs. It is a conditional use. Going through that study, we did find, with the mitigating factors supplied in the drive-through study, that they were meeting those requirements. So as it says, the staff does recommend approval with these following corrections or conditions. I'm sorry. You guys have any questions?
Not at this time for me.
All right. And Trey is here.
I was going to say, if the applicant's here, we'll go ahead and have him come up and add any additional information you may want to present to us, if there's anything different from what has been presented, or?
No, I'm Trey Orsak, and I think Sheldon did a great job. We're excited for the opportunity to develop these 3 properties.
Okay, thank you, Trey, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let you have a seat. All right, any discussion from the,
I guess I do. Lot 9, back on the site plan, if you guys can see that. To construct his entrance road, it looks like it spills onto the adjoiner to the west's property. Is there, how can he do that without having an interest in that property?
into the parking on the, just to the north of it, is what you're talking about?
No, if you look, the part you would turn in on, coming into
The
lot
curb
9,
returns.
the curb return comes, it actually cuts across to a different property.
So is the plan to
Gotcha.
stop construction at the lot line, or does he have an agreement with the adjoiner?
Can you point that out? Where is it?
Top left
your hand?
Yeah.
of the site plan.
Top left.
Where's the mouse?
There is no mouse, yeah.
Supposed to move.
Your neighbor.
There he goes,
Did you
right
say
there.
lot 9?
Oh,
Yeah.
that triangular
Lot-
piece.
Yeah, lot 10, I think is adjacent to it.
Yeah, so I think that shares a lot line with lot 13, right?
Yeah.
And so,
I meant in the future.
With lot 9 and the adjoiner to the west.
yeah, that's a good catch right there. For the curb that is going that direction, we don't know what the plan is for lot 13 and for their curb. The private drive aisle is the horizontal line that's right to the north of that tree. And so as far as how that curb details and goes in, that's obviously something that we'll have to clarify.
So the way it's shown right now, you would have to either get in an agreement with that
You're
lot
right.
owner or stop your construction at
Correct.
that line.
But you own that lot, correct?
We currently do, yes.
Oh, I'm with you.
So the questions I had were, lot 11, if I understand it, looks like more of a traditional restaurant style. However, it has no parking lot, other than using lot 7's parking lot, right?
Yes.
Do you think you'll get people that want to buy a property that has no ability to park on?
It's a good question. So the OEA agreement that we do have for lots 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11 dictate that the lot 7, the lot 9, and lot 11 parking lot is to be shared.
Okay,
Yeah, and that's why we submitted this application all together as well.
okay. So my only issue is we normally have never, that I remember, approved, my concern for me would be lots 6, 11, and not the parking lot of 7. The fact that we don't know what's going there. So conditional approval, in my mind, for those 3 seems a little premature. I get tying it together for the parking and all that stuff, and I understand that. But to me, to say we approve whatever you want to do in lot 11 without even knowing what's going in lot 11,
Yes.
the building pad of lot 7 and lot 6 in its entirety. To me, that's my only concern I have. I get why you tied it all together for flow, now that you said that it would be a cross easement across the whole thing. And that easily could be, in my opinion, a recommendation that we say the building pad for lot 7, lot 8, sorry, I keep mixing it up, lot 6, lot 6, 7, and 11 all come back again, is a concern that I would have. Again, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but that, to me, we're seeing Java Express, Seven Brothers, and Quench It, where we're not seeing what's going there. And what's jogging my memory of this issue is I've seen where other communities have approved things that clearly can't hold the stacking lane. And I'll just say, anybody that's been by the district and seen the chicken place that continually goes down the road, which might not make sense if it's gonna block all the traffic, is all I'm trying to say.
Now, the piece that I see is if lot 11 ends up being an IHOP, we've got a problem with Java Express. But if it ends up being like a barbecue place that has only nighttime, then, you've got day and night uses.
Correct, and that's why I think we shouldn't carte blanche approve all of them, have those 3 come back. It may limit what you're saying, right? If it was an IHOP and a Java Express, it might be a problem.
If it's all breakfast, we're all in trouble.
Yes.
If it's a mix, then it works.
But again, I'm just saying that could be a condition that those three would be. Do you have any issue if that was a condition?
Well, of course, the reason that we submitted this together is because it works from our standpoint. Tenants that do want to come into Harriman right now, Lot 5 works for Java Express.
Yeah.
With the shared parking. If we were to hold off on Lot 6 or Lot 5,
I'm not saying to hold off on any. I'm saying that in order for you to continue on Lot 6, 11, and 7 structure, you'd have to come in for 6, 11, and 7 structure.
oh, yeah, and that's definitely our intention.
Okay.
6, 11, and 7. Sorry, I
way-
thought you were mentioning 5.
To me, the way that the recommendation would be written as it stands right now, because we're approving all of the lots,
Yeah.
there would be nothing for you to have to come back if we don't put that restriction.
Oh, yes.
Is
And,
why I'm asking.
and that's totally acceptable and something we expected to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm good with that then. Yep.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
You
I know one of the
mentioned-
conditions is just, I guess, garbage retention or storage. I'm just curious.
What was your question? I couldn't hear you. Brody.
Oh, just where they have like garbage storage for each one of these sites? If,
Yes, so
Clear up at the top of 7.
8 and 9, they
oh,
share.
they're all at the top. Sorry, I
garbage.
didn't see those. Okay.
And then Lot 5 shares with Lot 11.
Right there in the
Oh,
And then
gotcha.
Lot 7, you can see that there's also 2 garbage
more.
enclosures there in Lot 7.
So they're
Okay.
clear on the other side of the parking lot there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Darryl,
I
did
just-
you have
And,
something?
yeah, all these sharing elements, they're going to be in some form of an agreement on this development.
Exactly, yeah, an OEA, yeah.
And I wish them all success. If they are all successful, and you have tons of cars coming in and out of these pull-throughs, you mentioned earlier that there is something that says that they'll have parking lot attendants to direct that traffic flow.
Yes, so for the 3 tenants, for 5, 8, and 9, we had asked them to share their company plan for that. So the study done by Hales Engineering mentioned that Lot 5 and Lot 8 and 9, the traffic queue in 9 would go past the 9 queue, but they have that drive aisle that heads to the north of it, so it was sufficient. But if the engineer underestimated, they recommended the reserved parking spots for the large orders. And then the companies each came back and said, and we also place orders with iPads and employees that go out and take orders earlier on to funnel the orders through sooner. So it's estimated, for instance, for Java Express, it takes 5 minutes from the time they place the order to actually receive the product. And they had no concerns with that. Sorry, did that answer your question or sort of?
Yeah, thank you. I just see a potential for, you have the east-west aisle, and I think we've all seen restaurants where, there are a lot of vehicles that come in at lunchtime or different times, and it does take effort to serve each one, so the cars back up into those aisles and
Yes.
cause difficulties.
Yeah. And of course, these companies, they have a vested interest to make sure that those lines don't go farther than they need to be. The customers ultimately will vote with their feet, and they'll stop coming if this becomes a congested mess. Based off of what Hales has said and what they've committed to do, I believe that it will be sufficient.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
So
All right.
I have a question. Has there been any kind of agreement in regards to you have cross parking agreements, but do you have cross easement, or not easement, but access agreements, or any kind of drainage agreements between them, or are these all individually designed for all those aspects?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the utilities, they all come from that private drive aisle that's to the north of it. And the only thing that's shared between all of those lots is an underground storage, the LID tank for stormwater retention. But that's something as a developer that we're putting in. It's just so large that we needed to put it under lot 7. That was about the only place that we can put it.
And that's going to cover all these lots,
Yes, yes.
5 through 11.
Yeah, but sewer, water, power, everything else will come individually to
Trap.
the lots.
Anything like that?
Exactly. Grease trap as well. None of that is shared.
My other question too is just looking at this, you know, we have a lot of drive-throughs in Harriman. And looking at this is set up for 6 drive-throughs, all in one little area. And my concern is any kind of walkability, you know, for these restaurants. You know, it's looking at the traffic diagrams that you provided. You know, it's going to be 9 lanes across to come from, you know, the main part of Harriman over to these restaurants. And I understand it's an auto mall, and auto malls, you know, obviously attract cars, and drive-throughs are for cars. But you know, is that the direction that, you know, that the city wants to go? That's just a question out there. It has nothing to do with this little specific lots, but it's a little concerning to me. We do have in Harriman situations like this where we have multiple drive-throughs right next to each other, and you wouldn't be caught dead in front of them, beside them, near them if you're not in a vehicle, and then it just gets congested. So that's my only comment.
Okay.
I guess some things we've done in the past is if there's like a safe walking way between the parking stalls, a better way for patrons to take their kids across the parking lot. I don't know if there's enough space there to do like a sidewalk.
Except for based off the 3 uses of 5, if we go back to what they're proposing putting in there, they're not go-in type of restaurants.
Is lot
They
8?
are drive-through, truly drive-through restaurants.
So
I would get that if
Yeah.
one of them was like a McDonald's. I get what you're
Yeah.
saying there, and that's why I wonder about, and that's why I want to reserve the right on building 7. But the rest, look at the uses they're proposing.
Yeah.
It's not a business that's pulling people in. It's truly get your stuff and go.
Well, I think lot 8 has an outdoor patio, so I think that they are planning for.
For the commission's consideration, this is actually a topic that we did talk about with the applicant's team. I know that both Clint and Sheldon worked with them, and you'll notice that from Harriman Parkway here in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, you can see a pedestrian connection from the sidewalk. And then all of the sidewalks in front of all of these stores are all aligned. So we will have a dedicated, you know, crosswalk that goes across all of these businesses, and then it connects back out again to Harriman Auto Row.
You can actually see that in the striping line, right?
So, I mean, there will be ADA, you know, ramps. You'll go up to a sidewalk and it'll drop back down through the drive aisle, but it'll be striped and it'll be all in line. So at least there is a place for a pedestrian to walk from, you know, store to store if that's their preference, or.
Maybe we should raise the crossings.
What about,
Sorry.
I guess, traversing from the parking lot, which is, you know, north in this direction, to the actual stores? So I'm assuming that some of these stores they're not purely drive-through, correct?
you're right. Seven Brothers, I think, has occupancy available for about 40 people. Quinchit, there's 2 tables in there. Java Express is standing room only, pretty much.
And I think that's a good comment. I mean, I love this line of questioning or thought. I think what we need to do, though, is actually put that into our standards. If we want to have pedestrian pathways from the parking lot field to the stores. We were able to require this because we do require accessibility, that when there is a potentially employee or a customer who has an emergency egress away from these buildings, they need to have a way to exit the building and go far enough away from the building to a public right-of-way. And so we were able to require this level of pedestrian connectivity for accessibility, but I think going into the parking field and requiring a sidewalk connection, that would be, I think, something we would need to add to our commercial standards.
Well, and one of the things that is happening here with the handicap stalls, there obviously is that adjacent open area that's not for parking, so pedestrians could use that as a refuge to get into the parking area. So it's not like you're gonna have a sea of cars parked in front blocking it. There will be that area right next to the handicap stalls, the ADA stalls there, so.
I like that. I like that a lot, having small children trying to get through a big parking lot. Let's say if I want to go to lot 11 and I can't park except in the upper corner, then.
But we don't have anything in the standard right now.
No, we can't. So.
I do think staff should put that on their list of ideas to add.
Add it to the list.
Seems like we add 3 a night.
Chase reminded me that we still need to update our conditional use standards too, so we are working on that. We'll see if we can get that bit to you in December or January, so.
From a services standpoint, I see this as being quite popular. It's the food court for 126 South.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what 134th has already, right? I mean, if you go down on the Riverton side, it has this whole layout almost completely, so I think it makes sense.
Riverton gave it to us already.
All right, let's keep going. Anything else for the applicant? We ready to entertain a motion?
Yeah, if everybody's ready, I don't want to cut everybody off.
Yep.
I'd like to
think we
make
are.
a motion to approve item 3.1 with staff's 9 recommendation with a requirement of number 10 that lots, sorry, I got to make sure I'm saying it right, 6, 7's building pad, and 11 come back for planning commission approval.
All right, we have a motion by Adam. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Jackson. We'll go ahead and take a vote. Brody?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
And Daryl?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you very much, Trey.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to, let's see. Oh, yes. Did
So
you
one
get
item,
clarification?
just to clarify, the only reason this came in as a conditional use, so each lot is under 1 acre. The only reason this came in as a conditional use is because they came in together as, several uses. So our concern is that when future lots come in that are smaller than 1 acre, so these empty building pads that come in, they're on lots that are less than 1 acre, which by ordinance does not allow us to have them be approved as a conditional use. So that's my concern with the
With the motion that we have.
motion. Right.
So then that keeps us, that pretty much gets us stuck, right? I mean, honestly.
Well, it's
Hearing
stuck,
what
but we'd
Jack's-
be stuck anyway if they all came in independent. We wouldn't have seen this tonight. If they all came in independent. We wouldn't have seen what we just did.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
wouldn't
they
be
could have come
approving the
in
parking lot.
individually.
They could have
and
come in
then They just
individually.
would have been approved as individual projects, but
Yeah.
because they wanted to include the cross parking and everything in this first stage. That's
You're
why
saying we
everything-
need to remove item 10, is what you're saying?
that would be my recommendation. And those, in terms of when those buildings come in, there's obviously going to be standards that the city will look at to make sure that, they're still going to have to meet ordinances for
Yeah, but you, like,
traffic circulation.
going to
and all that.
Jackson's point, we don't have anything in the standard that could stop if it was an IHOP going right next to there, right? If it was 2 uses that is sharing the parking lots. If it became all breakfast food, there's nothing that we have other than us doing that and adding that in, right?
Could we,
So our motion that we just made will not force that to come back to us, right? We made that motion that it needs to come back to us. Can we,
we said it
have,
had to come
I know
back
it's
to us.
permitted use, but as a part of this condition, we said it has to come back.
So to me, I think that makes it.
Yeah,
If they were to come back together, much as this item did,
Yeah.
as a conglomerate of 3 lots, if those were to come back together and they equaled 1 acre, it would come in as a conditional use.
But because we said it needs to come back to us for those 3, it still needs to come back to us, correct?
Right, but it comes back as a permitted use, not a conditional use review.
But we want it to come back to the planning commission.
But we said
Or
to the-
site plan
Well-
review is what you're asking for it to come back
Oh.
as.
But how do we control like what it is? Because I don't think we have any control.
Can we
over
do
it.
that as a part of site plan review, right? I guess, yeah.
Really, it's about diversification of use, so that the parking doesn't get overburdened. So if there's some sort of diversification requirement, then
It's maybe just a,
that's
you
what
know,
we're looking for.
in terms of the ordinance, and maybe that's where the shortage comes, right? Is the ordinance allows all these uses as permitted uses. We can't regulate, obviously, one use next to another. The one thing we can regulate is to make sure that they have enough parking, that they have enough landscaping, that their traffic circulation is going to work. All those things are provided for in the ordinance, but we can't control, obviously, what use comes in side by side by side.
well,
And the parking numbers that they supplied were for the square footage of the buildings.
Correct.
For all of them.
All of them.
Not just
Agreed.
the 3, but it was for all of them.
but
So-
even if we keep it how it is and it goes to staff, I mean, at least it's permitted, right? So it still stands. I mean, you guys can still approve it, and if there's an issue, then you can bring it back to planning commission, right?
It does have a ZC on that.
Right. I don't think in this area it doesn't. Just to the north of it is the zoning conditions take off to the north, on the north side of it.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the motion. I mean, is this more of an
comes in
information that if they
individually,
Yeah, I
come
just want to make it
independent?
clear, so when these other
Yeah.
plats come in and they don't come back to the commission, you'll be aware.
That's why. Okay, so we don't need to amend anything, just
Your motion's appropriate.
appropriate. Okay. So hopefully they do come back together. We would encourage.
What we're gonna ask is staff can still bring it up in a work meeting and show us what's going on, right?
Absolutely.
That to me is at least amenable even for the small pieces.
Sorry, we should have nipped that in the bud a little earlier, but
That's okay, we
we
got the
both
motion
looked at
done.
each other and said, you saying something, am I gonna say it? So, I apologize.
You guys are supposed to keep us out of trouble.
I
All
know,
right. Okay, are we good to move on to item 3.2 then? All right, we'll move on to item 3.2, a request to approve the residential subdivision plat amendment to consolidate lots 3 and 4 of the East Ridge Phase 1 subdivision.
All right, I'm back.
Sheldon.
So this is subdivision amendment to consolidate lots 3 and 4 in the East Ridge subdivision. What the applicant's requesting is a consolidation of lots 3 and 4. These lots are in an agriculture zone. Combined total of both lots is 0.52 acres, so it would still be compliant with their zoning regulations. This is kind of a view of the site. You can see there, I guess to the left there is kind of where that pocket park's supposed to go, and then to the northeast and southeast is kind of the back. The southeast is the back portion of the lots, but the northeast is the front portion of the 2 lots. I guess the reason behind this lot consolidation was the applicant wants to build a home in this lot, and that one lot itself couldn't really contain the building's footprint, so he was asking to consolidate these lots so he could construct a building on a larger site. This is, it's I guess a conventional subdivision, but it was approved with 45 units, a density of 2.4 units per acre. With this consolidation, actually reduces the lots on this site. Just a little background. So this is a three-phase build-out. Phases 1 and 2 have been recorded. Phase 3 is still, my understanding it's been finalized with the engineering, just hasn't been recorded. Other concerns was the easement that ran between lots 3 and 4. The applicant says they have So they have obviously there's an existing easement between lots 3 and 4. The applicant says that, they will get the waivers from the utility companies to waive those. There's no utilities currently placed in those easements. This is what they're proposing. So it's, again, the overall combined lot site would be just over a half acre. I guess have any questions? The applicant is here as well.
Yeah, any questions for Sheldon before we?
I don't have any.
No?
don't think so.
Okay. We'll go ahead and ask the applicant to come forward then, provide any additional information. Sheldon, thank you. So John Thornton. Very good. I recognize that name. Thanks again for your help.
Ask you to stand up and say the pledge again. Yeah, pretty simple. Just this buyer wants to have a larger lot and take advantage of that location with that. So it's just a simple consolidation of those two lots.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant then?
I don't have any.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate your time.
thanks.
All right, is there any discussion from the commission?
Not for me.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Looks pretty straightforward. Okay, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion then.
Okay. See if I can get this right. I recommend approval for the residential subdivision plat amendment to consolidate lots 3 and 4 of the East Ridge Phase 1 subdivision.
Very good. We got a motion by Darrell.
I'll second it.
And a second by Adam. We'll go ahead and call for a vote. Darrell?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
And Brody?
Yes.
Perfect. That motion passes. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. We'll move on to item 3.3. I believe this is Clinton's. Request for approval to find for a compelling countervailing public interest of water efficient standards. So, did we lose him? We lost him. Where'd he go? Oh, he's outside talking. Somebody better go gather him up.
We enlisted Chase on this anyway.
All right, Chase, go ahead.
So this matter is being presented to the Planning Commission simply to formalize and identify a compelling public interest in preserving water within the state of Utah. Harriman City Council recently adopted the water efficiency standards. Those water efficiency standards have been codified in our city's code. However, certain developments do have vested rights that were in place prior to the adoption of those water efficiency standards. State code does allow for an exception to the vested rights doctrine, which means that there are certain circumstances under which a city can actually require a development with prior approval to abide by ex post facto laws that are passed and adopted after approval has been granted. A compelling, countervailing public interest is one of those exceptions. Most of the MDAs that the city has adopted also have an exception to the rights that are vested within the development agreement that allow the city to identify these compelling, countervailing public interests and require those developments to abide by these updated standards. So what we're asking the Planning Commission to do is to simply adopt a written finding, which is included in your packet, that identifies the water efficiency standards as a compelling, countervailing public interest. So any development applications that are made that have a vested right that was vested prior to the adoption of the water efficiency standards would, with this written finding, be required to comply with the water efficiency standards. So I kind of winged that, not knowing that I was going to be the one doing it. Does the Planning Commission have any questions about what this is trying to accomplish and the scope of where this would apply?
So if I just restate it to confirm. So in a lot of the MDAs, we approved landscaping standards. This would supersede those landscaping standards with the new city requirements.
Within the scope of the water efficiency standards, yes. So if there was something that conflicted with the water efficiency standards and what was vested under a previous development agreement, with this written finding being adopted, the water efficiency standards would take priority.
It's like park strips.
Park strips, exactly. Things of that nature.
Okay.
Is that up to construction? So if something has already been constructed?
It's an application phase. Yep. Good question.
Another thing that we had talked about is that occasionally there may be an existing project that's used our older standards, and then the next phase that is using the newer standards. We may need to figure out how to make a transition between those two landscape designs. And we identified that we could, in that case, use the waiver of strict compliance tool that's come before you before to try and address that transition area if needed. So we don't have such a juxtaposition, such a stark change potentially. Usually most phases are developed fairly whole, but occasionally there will be a phase that actually breaks like mid-block. So when we obviously want to apply these standards wherever we can, but we may have some transition zones that we will work with the developer and the planning commission on how do we best apply those strict standards.
So we don't end up with a cactus next to a maple tree.
Something like that.
Potentially, right. I will say too, so this written finding is a state requirement. Within LUDMA, there's a requirement that the Planning Commission, the Land Use Authority for the city, adopt this written finding. And we're not trying to apply this to one specific development in general, right? This is a broad stroke to say, if this does come up, we're getting ahead of it and saying, well, we already have this written finding that's adopted, and we're not going to have to come back to you at a later time.
Well, administratively, we've had to ask the question over and over. It's like been a case-by-case basis, and it's been very difficult because generally, I think almost exclusively, we have been applying it very consistently because we are trying to save water, right? That we understand, we've received that message, but this will just help us administrate that policy more uniformly with more clarity.
And most developers have, when asked to comply, most have agreed to, right? I mean, they all recognize the same need to conserve water, so.
Right.
Any other questions?
There's state standards.
These are standards, so great question. The water efficiency standards, we actually worked with Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, and we were kind of the leading city to come out with these, and we worked with them on crafting these and adopting them, and I think they are now spreading throughout the municipalities, particularly those that are members of Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, but I think you'll see this a lot more throughout the state.
Thanks.
Has there been any concern from developers about this?
It is a little more expensive, right? It requires a little bit stricter planning from a landscaping perspective. But like I said, I think for the most part, developers, especially those under a development agreement, recognize that we have that right to exercise this countervailing compelling public interest exception and have simply complied and done what they needed to come up to compliance with that standard.
Do you think long-term it's cheaper since they don't have to pay
Yes,
for as much water?
definitely. Yeah, for the end user, it definitely is, and it conserves water for Jordan Valley Water and the city in turn, but up front, right, the landscaping requirements, the coverage, you can't just throw in grass anymore. You've got to have certain coverage requirements, and I'm sure if Heidi were here, she'd take the next hour and a half talking to you about it, but I think the answer is yes, right? Long term, it definitely is going to conserve water and save money.
I have a question. So like when let's say we do a subdivision and we basically make one of those lots detention basin for water retention, typically we have grass put in. Would this change what we would do in those circumstances to landscape it differently?
If it doubles as active play space, potentially we could still have lawn, but it has to be essentially programmed, usable play space. It can't be just merely for decoration. Just can't be just an expansive green just to be pretty. Okay. It has to be purposeful.
Have they come up with a good design of a detention pond that isn't grass yet? Has somebody done that?
Yeah.
I mean, I know like South Jordan puts a fence around them. It's something I think we need to consider what we want to come up with our standard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every one of the ones that are native never become an eyesore, and I think we may need to get creative on what is programmable, right? And maybe we have the small soccer fields at the bottom of them. I'm not saying landscape grass the entire thing, but come up with the right standard, and maybe we can have her look at that, because that's something we need to address, right? I mean, we all know, you can see the ones that are native and why we don't want those. There needs to be some balance between them.
And that's kind of to my point, like other options with that park strip. I've seen, I don't know if they call it a swell, where you basically retain the water on the property. That would, I like that as an alternative a lot, because I feel like every development has this vacant lot that's grass.
And
I
our
think we should
engineering,
put pickleball courts in the bottom of them, honestly. I think we should put little things
Yeah.
like that that make it unique.
That make
There's
it
one
usable.
up in Rosecrest that's a basketball court.
Yep.
And for the very few times, I mean, we all know that it's gonna be rare that they will be actually used as full, 8-foot detention ponds. But we could do little things in each one of them that makes it
We can make that
still
one of our
maintained
bonuses,
and doesn't become an eyesore, is what we need to start thinking about.
our density bonus. There's an idea.
Hey, I'd be happy to give a density bonus for that. And we could write that into a standard.
So we are looking for a formal motion on this.
I've been waiting. I'm ready
Yeah.
to make a.
Come on, Adam,
I'd like
get
to
going.
recommend-
Any other comments?
Staff wanted to talk about it forever. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 3.3.
Got a
I'll
motion.
second that.
Motion by Adam and a second by Brody. We'll go ahead and call for a vote. Brody?
Yes.
Jackson?
yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
And Daryl?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, that takes care of our administrative items. We'll move on to items 4.1, 4.2, which are legislative items, but let me go ahead, because these are both up for public comment. We have some public members here with you, and we appreciate you being here. Just read the public comment and policy and procedure here. The purpose of public comment is to allow citizens to address items on the agenda. Citizens requesting to address the commission will be asked to complete a written comment form that's there in the back, and present that to Wendy Thorpe, our deputy recorder. In general, the chair will allow an individual 3 minutes to address the commission. A spokesperson recognized as representing a group in attendance may be allowed up to 5 minutes. And this policy also applies to all public hearings, which we have at this time. So we'll move on. You're not out in the hall this time. Appreciate that, Clinton. Go ahead and move on to item 4.1, a request to approve a zoning text amendment to Title 10. And so forth.
We'll try this again.
All right.
We've been back a few times, and hopefully third time's a charm. So this is for accessory buildings, and it's something we've been discussing with the city, or as a city, for several months now. Is there a way to turn this monitor on? Anyway, there we go. Just helps me, I can look at this and not crook my neck. So the objectives of this were to consolidate all the standards into one location. They're kind of spread out throughout all of the city ordinance right now, and then to update it as we do so. So in terms of the updates that we've taken into account, so we've clarified a lot of the language. We've added in some architectural standards that are more objective versus subjective in terms of finishing materials, specifications of street side materials. We've had some roofing details as well, and then what kinds of materials are not permitted. We've also updated the table that has a kind of a summary of setbacks, size, heights, those kinds of things. And then we've allowed this special exception, which we've limited to very few and hopefully very unique circumstances that occur throughout the city that we've been made aware of. So this is the purpose statement that will be part of this Chapter 34. And it's basically stating that we want to have accessory structures that are compatible with the neighborhood, but at the same time allowing flexibility for the use of people's property. We've talked a lot about Harriman's identity or desire of residents to enjoy the outdoors and to have recreational vehicles and things that could be stored and should be stored or could be stored with this ordinance inside of a building, out of the weather and out of view as well. So the areas of regulation are location, height, again, our architectural standards, development standard table, special exceptions, and then we've added in a few definitions as well. So I'll go through kind of a summary of all the changes that have been made. I know that we talked about a lot of these in our last work session meeting, and hopefully we've addressed as many of those as possible. So in terms of setback from the primary structure, anything that's larger than 200 square feet will be required to be set back at least 5 feet from the primary structure. Anything smaller than 200 square feet can be placed directly adjacent to it. In terms of setbacks, you can see the setbacks here for interior. The one question we had is on the side yard, especially adjacent to a corner. There was some discussion to have that, to allow those structures closer to the street, and during the meeting, I don't know that we came to a consensus on that. That's something that could be proposed either way, so I left it in as requiring it to meet this, to still meet the same setback as the primary structure, but that could be something of discussion tonight. And then in terms of medium and large, the setback increases to 3 feet, 6 feet from adjacent structures. Again, you can see the setback requirements here. For those larger structures, I think we did feel like it was consistent to require the side yards adjacent to a street to match the same side yard as the home. And then this is where we had the amendment, and hopefully all of us got out and did our homework on those larger accessory buildings to see what the setbacks actually were. So for a lot larger than 10,000 square feet, if you have a 25-foot building and you want to increase the height of that, you can go up to 25 feet, but then every foot above 16 feet, you increase the side yard setback and potentially the rear yard setback. But I know that was something that we were going to look at and see if that's something. I think the side yard setback requirement, increasing that side yard setback as the height increases was okay. The question was whether or not we wanted to do the same thing on the rear side, increase the rear yard setback. So that's something that, there's two options in the ordinance that was drafted, and so we just looked to the commission for direction on which one you want to go with. Again, this is the same option that's provided in those large lots as well, just specifically addressing that rear yard setback. Does that increase as the height increases, or does that just maintain as 3 feet otherwise? These are just some examples to kind of get a feel of massing on the site and what would be left over as accessory structures are placed in a rear yard. This is a 5,000 square foot lot. You can see the 3 examples there of the different sizes of structures. 10,000 square foot lot. And admittedly, the footprints of these homes are probably a little larger than what might be actually in place. But these are some of the research that we looked at to help us identify what size structure is going to be compatible with the use, and what's going to meet our community's values in terms of leaving enough space for open space, as well as still providing enough location inside of a garage to store your RV or other materials or hobby shops or whatever it might be. This is a half-acre lot here, again showing just some of the percentages of buildings. In terms of size, so if you're under 6,000 square foot, then it's 15% of the rear yard or 75% of the home. Under 11,000 square feet, that goes up to 25% of the rear yard. And then if you're under half an acre, you're allowed to go up to 80% of the footprint of the home or 25% of the rear yard. And then when you get up into from the half acre and to acre, then the rear yard increases from 25% to 40, and the 125% of the home, and then over 1 acre, the restriction of the footprint of the home is taken out, and it just remains 40% of the rear yard. And the idea there was, as lots get larger, you have more room to work with, and therefore a little more flexibility in allowing the larger structures, and a little less impact as well. In terms of architectural standards, we have established some materials that would not be permitted. Anything exposed or unfinished, non-rigid materials, so these canvas type structures you buy at Costco or wherever they might come from, those would not be permitted as permanent structures on the lot. Over 200 square feet, you would need to match the architecture of the home on street and front-facing sides. There are some roofing materials as well. I think that we included. So it's not shown on the PowerPoint here, but in the ordinance itself, I did include the cedar shake as a siding for exterior materials as well. This is the roofing materials here. And then when it's associated with an agricultural use, there is some allowance there. One of the additions that we did make was in regards to chicken coops. If they're on, so when they exist on the lot where the primary home is, they can only be placed 15 feet from the primary structure, and then they have to maintain at least a 25-foot distance from any adjacent structure, any existing home. And then the exterior would just be compatible with the main use on these agricultural types of buildings when possible. In terms of the special exceptions, so these are the unique situations that arise in a community when you get a weird shaped lot or topography that might impact or affect where you can place an accessory building. And so we are allowing in certain special circumstances when that might take place. For an agricultural use, potential is there. And then this next one here, if it's to match the pitch and the design of the primary structure of the roof, there may be a special exception for that as well. Now this last one, we took it out, and as I got thinking about it again, and this is again for consideration, but there may be a situation where, and maybe I don't think I addressed it as well as it should have been, but there may be a situation when you have a lot that would prohibit, adequate parking for that. So if you have not necessarily prohibit, but it would be a better design to have your parking perhaps placed behind the building as opposed to having a side entry garage where it takes up a lot of street frontage. So in those cases, if you have a home that, and the rear yard of that home does not allow for a large enough structure for the required parking, then this provision would allow that parking to take place.
So it's just detached parking?
Yeah,
Okay.
for detached parking specifically. In terms of special exceptions, all of these special exceptions would come before the Planning Commission for approval. These are some of the standards we look very similar to the conditional use standards. And then all of the adjacent property owners would be notified as well as part of this exception process. And then our recommendation, based off of your direction on a couple of those items, is for approval of this tonight, and we'll get it to the City Council for approval. If you have any questions, I'm glad to hear them.
Any questions, comments?
Just my thought is, I go back to what Adam said about that rear, like it being off the backside of the lot. To me, I kind of feel like I want to allow it to be closer depending on kind of what's going on around it, almost like a conditional use. Like if there's no other structure within a certain distance from the back lot line, that we would allow for the owner to go closer to the back lot line with their structure.
Even closer than the 3 feet?
No, I guess I missed that. Well, if it goes up higher, then they're having to still move away.
If it goes up higher, they got to step farther away.
Further away. Yeah.
Which, like I said, I've already said my piece. I really I think 3 feet's too much, but that's just my opinion. So I think the 200 feet's reasonable. So having the ability for the small sheds is reasonable. So I'm actually I have 3 questions is all. So that's it. So, and they're fairly easy. But I would personally like to let the public comment go before I say my 3.
Okay.
All right.
But Brody, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know how else to
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
get that issue.
Yeah, we do have an opportunity for a public hearing on this, and maybe just as point of clarification for those in education. So these are legislative items. The Planning Commission hears the comment. The motion that we provide will be as a recommendation to the City Council, and it will then go back to the City Council for final approval. So there will still be other opportunities at that point to make additional comments if you do not comment at this time. So at that point, at this point, I would like to go ahead and open up item 4.1 for public comment. If there's anybody that would like to comment at this time on this matter. Come on forward, state your name for the record. And
Pedro Martins. I live at 5674 West Cottage Road Circle. You guys have seen me for the last couple of months. I kind of got caught in the city giving out bad advice and then making choices based on that advice and then being told, sorry, we messed up, but you got to play by the new rules. So I've read through the documentation really carefully. Some of the feedback is in respects to the setback. I actually don't agree with the city recommendation and prefer the section that's highlighted in red. And particularly in the case where somebody has a pie-shaped lot, the current requirements are going to push that building more towards the center of the lot because of easements. And if you go anywhere above that 16 feet, you're basically really restricting what can be done there. I would also say, based on my experience coming to the meetings and just all the different circumstances, I believe that at least for a pie-shaped lot, that there should be more flexibility in the exception process, or because right now I think the way it's written, only an inverted pie shape would fall under a weird shape or whatever the language is. And because of the setbacks in the language that's proposed right now, you're really pushing the accessory building into the center of the lot. And that was one of the things that came up a lot in the discussions that you guys had in Planning Commission. The other thought I had too was, and I understand that you put too many cooks in the kitchen and it's a hot mess, but I feel like there should be an opportunity for public comment in situations like this during the planning meetings. I understand that it's not necessarily appropriate to have the public constantly stepping in because it just drags things out, but I think there are so many different circumstances that you guys may not think of that there should at least be an opportunity for the public to provide feedback that you guys could at least take into account as you're making decisions, right? You're making big decisions for, the whole community, and I know that you guys are here to represent the community, which is awesome, but sometimes there's just things that, circumstances that may be occurring that you may not think of. Like in my case, the setback makes no sense. My back property has no easement, and there's a parking lot and a playground behind me. I'm not gonna upset anybody by having my shop that I wanna build either up against the fence or 3 feet back from it. There's really no benefit to the setback of anything over 16 feet. So anyways, appreciate all your efforts and taking on this. I know you can't keep everybody happy, but that's my feedback and appreciate the time. Thank you.
I do have one question. You said the red section, and I'm trying to find out what you're referencing, just so I can understand your comment.
So in the documentation, there's the staff's on height, there's staff's original proposal, and then there's the amended proposal with 3 feet rear.
when they add the rear to the
Yeah, exactly.
side slash rear, and the rear was in the,
Yeah, as
right
I
there.
read it was that if you go with the red section, then it wouldn't matter on the height to have that setback for every foot that it goes over the 16 feet.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Perfect. Appreciate that clarification. Again, if you could fill out a little form and get it to our, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience as well. We know
Yeah.
you've been involved heavily.
Len Egbert, I live in Old Town Harriman. I think these are far too restrictive. You're trying to make everything community with CC&Rs. To have the buildings the same type of roof, same type of front facade, yeah, that might look pretty to you. Doesn't look pretty to everybody. Okay, we did a subdivision off of Pioneer. It's Kid Cabin Cove. They had CC&Rs. The city made us do CC&Rs. They came up and one of the neighbors put in a metal building. Looks fine. Isn't compatible with anything else. Another neighbor, he bought a lot that I was planning on. I had a permit for a shop, a block shop. It doesn't match his house, but it looks fine, okay? My aunt's place, we take care of one of my wife's aunts, and it's in Old Town Harriman. The house, the original house was built in 1890. It's brick with right now it's a shingled roof, asphalt shingle roof. In the back we have a small barn I built for them after the EPA came through and messed things up for us. And it's a block barn with a metal roof. And if I want to expand that, I would have to take off the existing roof and add, put in a asphalt shingle roof. I think it's far too restrictive. You guys are continually downsizing what can be put in on somebody's individual property. I don't think that's right. I think there might be some standards that should be in place, but that continually downsize and say, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the purpose of what you guys should be doing as a planning commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't know if there was an opportunity for online comment at all for this or not. I don't know if anything came in online or not. Okay. All right. Seeing no other comments, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and go ahead and open it up for discussion.
I have questions now. So, just three, honestly. I still think I agree with the irregular lots, and I'll call it corner lots as well. I was going to say, I don't understand why, if you look at the pie-shaped lots, which are typically the premium lots that people pay for, then the next level would be corner lots that people pay for, and then you have the generic ones. So basically, you get people that pay extra to put their desired interests in that, and I agree with the gentleman's comment about the pie shape or the corner lots. I think we need to lighten up the setback in those areas. What that means, again, I've said a foot. To me, I don't understand why. To me, a foot is it's just going to become a weed patch anyway, no matter how far you try and give people more view and all that stuff. So I still think just a simple foot seems simple for everything, but that's just my opinion. I think what you have done has tremendously helped a lot. I still think on the corner lots, we need to allow them to build close to, you're still going to have the utility easements they have to work with to get the approval anyway. If it's a fenced yard that's already fenced right up to the sidewalk, I don't know why we really care if there's sheds next to the fence. Otherwise, you're pushing it into the yard, and that's where I actually think you get a detriment to the property and surrounding ones. So that to me is my only issue with the corner lots. I had two questions. The rear yard, I just wanted to ask if we can go to the graphic that you had related to the example for like a 10,000 square foot. I don't know where it is in your package. It'll be easier for me to talk.
There you go.
So the one issue that I see is on some of those, again, going to the corner lots, a lot of the lot is on the side of their house. I'm actually okay with the way it currently is drawn, except for I have a simple question. If someone built an awning off of their house, so they had an awning coming off the back, would that reduce their ability to build accessory buildings as well? I get the structure, and if it's the base house, I totally get it. But if they have a covered patio or something to that nature, and you include that, it will take away the ability to pretty much have any real structure whatsoever. Do you understand what I'm trying to ask there?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that the way that we've defined accessory buildings or accessory structures are that they're detached.
Correct.
So if you built an awning onto the back, the requirement would still be you'd have to, depending on the size, you'd have to be a certain amount of feet away. But I don't think that that awning would take up.
You wouldn't lose that percentage that you could count for, is what I'm trying to say. So in this example, that's why I wanted to come up. You see how there's the green. Imagine that half of that orange space is a little awning, just like somebody's doing with the mouse.
Right.
We're not going to take away that percentage from the person wanting to build the shed or the garage. Or are we now calling that the structure of the house? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And taking away parts
Taking
of
away
the
more,
rear yard
because-
percentage so they can't
And again, I'll be honest, this is my house, and I already have my stuff built, so I don't care. But my point is...
They're grandfathered in.
But what my point is you're going to see these where people have an awning, and my backyard's only like 35 feet, so my awning goes right up to the setback line. But if you included that density, it would make it so that I couldn't build something coming off the corner lot if I really wanted to. And to me, that's the purpose of buying the corner lots, is to get a decent-sized shed off the side and get a side entrance. And I don't want to use myself, but I'm trying to say,
No, it's a
would
really
you
good question.
pull that off? Because like my covered patio is like, what, 1,200 square feet. So if you pulled off that 1,200 square feet of that 30-foot strip of 115 feet of land, it is a big detriment that would make my shed that I will never build be much, much smaller. And that's what I'm trying to say is we need to make sure, I actually agree, we need to, as you all heard when I first said this, we need to do less restricting. I get having some restrictions to make sure things look good, and I actually think we've come down a lot than what they used to be. It's more match, or at least look like the home. But I just think we need to talk about that, how you would count that percentage. And maybe it's just me trying to understand how staff would interpret that.
Yeah, and Clint, we might want to research that just a little bit more. I know typically when you're measuring setbacks, if you have a roof structure that is supported by columns, when you're measuring setbacks, you usually measure to the face of that structure, which is now the column.
Yes.
Sheldon, is this an issue you've dealt with in doing building permit reviews? Like, so if an awning extends off the back of a home, are we going to count that basically as square footage of the home? Yeah.
So the question would be, though,
I think it may. We'd have to see if there's an exception, like an encroachment exception for patios or awnings, and I would need to look at that here for a minute.
That's what I'm trying to say, is if we're adding that structure, like the garage, the house, the awning. I mean, you drew a simple house, and I totally get that. But as we're seeing, there's a lot more architectural elements in homes now.
Sure.
And so if that pushes that rear yard line really far back, I think we are limiting the blue box drastically, potentially.
Right.
So
if
we
you-
would draw the yard space around whatever addition, because potentially they could enclose that awning and actually make it habitable space year-round, right?
Fair.
So that's why typically cities will look at that as if it was an addition to the home.
So it's just something to think about, because it does really limit. And the reason why I'm asking that is on a corner, I actually on every home, I think it would be the face. I think we would be caring more about the face of the home, because then it doesn't matter. My whole scenario with having to worry about that density, if that green line delineation was at the front, it would solve this confusion in my mind.
In front, but not including the structure.
In front, you take
and
away
in-
the structure, but you include, you could basically
That
include
area.
the two side yards to,
Help compensate.
and that to me is what the intent is. But that's just all I'm trying to say, the way it's currently written.
Right, and so I think, like Mike said, I think we need to do a little more research on that. However, if we wanted to move this forward tonight and provide that provision in the the version that gets forward to the city council, what would be the commission's appetite on, do we exclude that, or do we allow those awnings? So if it's something that's, that is open on 3 sides, do we include that awning, or, potentially maybe it's a deck or something off of a 2nd story? Do we exclude that from the rear yard coverage, or do we allow the accessory structure size to be designated by the entire rear yard up to the living space of the home, and not just the outdoor amenity space of the home?
I would say living space, main structure.
Yep. Because what I'm pointing out here is, if you think about a corner lot, we know they have to have a 20-foot setback or a 30-foot setback on average, or 25 and 25, right? Because you know that they can swap over. So that 8-foot dimension on the left could be 30 feet. It's likely gonna be 25 or 30 feet unless it's in the very small homes. But on the thirds and quarters, it is likely that 8-foot dimension is 30 to 40 feet. And that's what I'm trying to say. On corner lots, you really are, it's kind of like the wings on the pie-shaped lots. We're punishing people for having those lots and not putting what typically would be the intent and why you pay extra for those lots.
So you would eliminate the setback requirement when it is adjacent to a street, essentially. That's what we're saying. For the corner lot and.
For sheds and accessory buildings, I think we should.
When they are adjacent to a street, and case in point that was given as well, a backyard that is facing
and
a
I know
parking
it's a
lot.
slippery slope,
or-
and I don't know the right,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't
that
have
one's
a
tricky.
great.
And I think an important thing to
On a corner
remember
lot.
is the reason that they have the coverage on the rear. Because you don't want an entire backyard to be filled with accessory structures. Now, if you build onto your house and reduce the size of your rear yard, that's your prerogative, but that doesn't give you license not to follow the setbacks.
It'd solve that water problem where I'm just messing around.
Right, so I mean, it's, the reason they have the coverage in the rear yard is, is to make sure that we don't have a whole bunch of shanty towns in the back of in our backyards. And if you eliminate that for the rare occasion, that like on a side or a corner lot, where it is larger on the side yards, I think it's important that we keep the setbacks, especially on the rears and on the sides and the rear coverages, because your backyard may be adjacent to someone's side yard. And if you eliminate it,
You got a great point there.
Yeah.
The one I want to say is on the corner, you still have to get, the realization we have to realize is the person's still going to have to get authorization you can't build over, most likely on a corner lot, you can't build within that 8-foot line because there's an easement there, right? There's a reality
Typically
there.
10 feet, yeah.
Typically 10 feet.
Right.
So that to me is that setback.
Right.
But the problem we have is we have more on top of that, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, so there's 2 things that we talked about in our work meetings and stuff, and again here tonight. So if it's a smaller size shed, so something smaller than 200 square feet, less than, I think that's 12 feet or shorter, do we allow that to go 1 foot from the property line on a corner facing the street? I think that when we discussed these, for larger buildings, I thought that we were okay with moving
Larger buildings, I
those.
completely agree. I'm talking
We're talking about
I'm
the
talking about the
smaller-
200, honestly, right now, on a corner lot, because this gets into playgrounds. I want people to realize this is like playhouses and things like that. They
Right, and
are
so that's-
accessory structures.
That was one of the things I don't think that we landed as a consensus. Well, we didn't have a consensus on that last time, so that would be something that we would want to have direction for as we move this forward in the city council.
Part of me almost wonders if, and I'm just throwing out an idea here, is for 200 square feet and lower, we have 0 setback. We don't have a foot. Because in reality, we know they're possibly going to be the plastic sheds. They're going to sit right next to the fence or the property line. Just hear me out this idea. And then we switch where we're saying 3 feet to 1 foot for all the other stuff. And it's 1 foot, except for if you build a really tall building, then you push farther away from the fence line. That would solve, I know that would solve the pie-shaped lots issue a little bit more, Because now it's only a foot out the front of their building that they would be losing, right? They'd still get their big triangle piece in the back. Now, yes, if they go really high, yes, they should shift a foot, just like how you have it proposed, but I'm actually saying switch go 0 and 1 instead of 1 and 3, like we've been proposing. And don't worry about setbacks on smaller than 200 square feet, because in reality, we're not, the shantytown statement, I completely agree with you, but there's no way we're ever gonna enforce. We don't do that. We've never done it. For little, small sheds, we need to make sure people can build what they want. And to me, that would basically do it, is 200 square foot would have a 0 foot setback, so you could put it anywhere.
Well, I don't like that people build right on the lot line, and I guess retaining water is a concern, even if it's small. Because I've just seen people, they'll build right on the lot line and then put a gutter, which aesthetically doesn't look great.
Like I said,
for me,
it was
a foot
just
off
something I
is
was wondering
decent,
about.
yeah.
Well, and the other, to add on to what you're saying about the setbacks, if you do have a lot where there is, the backyard is adjacent to a street, or why do you need to have the setbacks there either? Requirements, if it's not an adjacent homeowner or, property owner. If you've got, you don't need the setbacks at that point, right? The whole point of the setbacks, a couple things, utilities, and then also you're not encroaching too much on your neighbor, but if there's not a neighbor there, what's the harm?
That's my point.
Yeah.
My neighbor right now is my kids, my neighbor's boyfriend's parking spot.
Oh.
Right? I mean, that's who parks there. I mean, really. Like I said, I wonder if we went to 0 and 1, it might solve all of these issues. It would help with the irregular lots. In reality, like I said, we need to try and open and allow people to put stuff away and build things. Like honestly, that's the whole point of this. I get we want to have some rules and regulations to make good, to ensure people have good ideas that actually look good don't detriment the entire community, right?
The other discussion point was the one gentleman brought up the red word of rear on those setbacks. Sounds like from what I'm hearing from, well, maybe not consensus, but we want to get rid of that rear part, not include that in that phrasing as well.
I don't know, part of me feels like that is conditional for me, depending on how it impacts the surrounding properties. Because we've seen examples where the back is a hill. It's like, why do we care if it's going to be a foot away, or we're saying, hey, they want to build a really tall building, and so we're going to make them put it 10 feet away from a hill, or...
That could be coming as under the special exception where it says topography that creates a unique situation.
Okay.
That's maybe something that could be looked at as a special exception.
I feel good about
Topography, or even, like I keep saying, a roadway or a parking lot or whatever, right?
Couldn't that waiver of, what was it called, Mike? Waiver of...
Strict compliance, that's for landscaping only.
Okay, gotcha. Too bad, too bad. All right, well, a couple things too. I need to both agree and disagree with my compadre Adam. First of all, I think that it is prudent, for the sake of calculating the backyard, to include the side yards. From the front of the building back should be the square footage of the backyard, in my opinion. The canopies or awnings on a home, presume a big wind comes and blows that off. The house is still solid. The house is structurally sound with or without that canopy. Therefore, I don't think that should be subtracted from the square footage of the backyard. And then third, other than ag land, most of these lots we're talking about apply to some form of a platted subdivision. Those platted subdivisions at the moment of creation, where all the lots are simultaneously created, easements are established. Those easements have vested rights in them by virtue of the subdivision and the owner's dedication. how are we allowing any building to encroach on a platted easement? I don't understand that part.
They can get the.
So we don't.
If they can get it removed, that'd be part of the approval process, but in general, we're saying you can go ahead and encroach on that easement.
That's not what we're saying with the ordinance. So there's another provision in the ordinance that says that you can't, we don't allow buildings to go over utility easements. If it requires a building permit, we cannot do that. Obviously, and that just for reasons that you stated, that those easements are established by plat. It's in the cases where you don't have those easements that the 3-foot setback might be.
Okay, so other than ag land, then the argument of a 0-foot or a 1-foot setback's a moot point, because.
Except for Daryl, it's actually not that hard to get the easement removed.
But that's not what it's saying.
Correct. But it's saying you can't build in the easement, but if you go and get rid of the easement, right? Then where do we want to?
Yeah, if conditionally you can get rid of that easement, there's no easement, therefore there's no encroachment, do it. I don't have, if that's the case, I don't have a problem. The rain gutter argument I agree with, therefore 1 foot. Temporary buildings, playgrounds, I don't care what you do. Put it on the fence, put it on the house. I think I'm good with that. So we're talking, for me, I'm talking about permanent structures, inclusive of everything back of the front face of the building for the calculation. No encroachments on an existing easement. If the landowner has cleared the easement, there is no easement, so he's not encroaching.
So you kind of are agreeing with the 0 and 1 replacement. That's what I'm hearing you say. Not trying to point it out.
And just to make another clarifying
Trying to make sure
point,
he understands that you're kind of agreeing.
on buildings that are less than 200 square feet.
Understands.
So buildings that are less than 200 square feet that don't require a building permit, those could be placed over in easements, but it's,
Correct,
it's the
correct.
owner's
Discretion.
discretion.
There
And
it
so
is.
they have to be aware that if a utility comes in and they need to do utility work in that easement, whatever they have there, if it's not movable, it's got to come out.
Exactly.
Totally
I
agree,
with that
totally agree.
completely.
So I guess now that I'm looking at these special exceptions, that kind of, excuse me, takes into the point that we're discussing, right? What I was bringing up about other commercial industrial land uses on at least 2 sides, flexibility. So there is special exceptions that are still available to those individuals to come in. And
Right.
I'm assuming this, when you're saying special exception, does that mean it needs to come to the planning commission for approval, or is that just something that?
Yes,
Okay.
all special exceptions.
Have
And
to
the reason
come.
for the special exception is to make it something that's going to be very limited. We don't want every accessory structure in the city to come back to the planning commission for approval, which puts a lot of burden on the staff as well as commission in terms of time and things that really may not need to be looked at. So we're trying to create a very restrictive opportunity for people who are in very unique situations to come in and get approval.
But there's your lot shape, there's your topography, there's your, side yards and rear yards. So I think this helps cover it. But you're wanting it to be even less restrictive and not a special exemption, just allow it, I guess is some of what you're saying, not have it come to us.
I mean, if
all.
you can get the easement removed, and I agree with Daryl completely on that side, I really don't know why we care.
Yeah.
I get protecting the other person's, I get protecting other people, but remember, if they really want their view, they got to buy their lot, right? They buy the lot that gives them the view. So to me, then you start getting into really trying to protect from their rainfall going onto their property and the 1 foot buffer, or a little bit farther as you get higher, right? Because in reality, anything overrunning could be. So to me, I think that's rational on the 1 foot. I think small stuff, I don't know why we wouldn't just allow 0 feet. Because in reality, how often are you going to get a 200-foot structure that's 16 feet tall? So again, that's just what I'm kind of considering.
All right.
Is that? But that's just me.
Okay. So anyhow, we've heard a lot from Adam and Daryl. We appreciate it. I do want to give the opportunity to the other planning commission members if they want to bring up any other thoughts as well. Or if there's a concurrence.
I'm going to go a very different direction here, I guess.
Uh-oh.
We challenged ourselves to go take a look through some neighborhoods, right? Like on this, I'm pulling up this example of one of these drawings. I don't know if you can go back
He's back to
it.
the one you were giving us an example of just a little bit ago. The
8 foot on
map.
each side.
The 10,000 square foot. Yep. That one.
That one. So say, for example, somebody has their an RV pad to the right, that 10 foot, for example. They're going to drive into the backyard. Now they want to build a build a garage for that RV, which is, we have that a lot in this community. There's a lot of RVs parked on the side. I think a lot of people, that's where they're wanting to build. Realistically, I guess if we're going to set something, we've got to be realistic about it. If they're going to drive an RV back there, 16-foot tall RV, they're going to drive it. They don't want to then pull into the middle of the yard to build that shop.
Right, so they could
to
slide
build
that over to match.
But I'm just saying, I think we should, I know, like you were saying, protecting the view, we're worried about protecting the view. Sometimes that's, I'm not, and that's what I'm saying, I'm not there, because where I think you should be able to build a shop, a shed, or a garage for your RV 3 foot away from that lot line for your RV. I'd rather see a nice, garage for that RV than see a beat-up RV next to the house all day long. 3 foot away, yeah, there might be some views impacted, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think this is a realistic standard where we're pulling it, if they're going to be 25 foot tall, they're going to be 12 foot in. Am I doing the math right?
No.
25 foot tall, right? Because if they're over 16, it's a additional foot per. I just think we're pushing them too far into the yard, honestly, and I don't think that's realistic. I'd rather see a nice RV garage in the back than an RV along the side of the yard, to be honest. That's where I'm at. I just think we're too restrictive again. I think we're very much a recreational community with a lot of RVs. There's already a ton of these along lot lines all over the community. There's a ton of them already. I think we're.
And they don't, honestly, I don't think they look bad, right?
They don't look bad. I mean, when they first go into the neighbor, I understand when when it's all of a sudden there. But if you're coming and buying that lot, if you're buying that one next door, to me, it's not even a second thought. That's not a, so I don't know. I think we're being way too restrictive on this, but I might be in the minority on this.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts?
But I don't want to hold it up either. We've been holding up a lot of people at the same time too, so I don't.
Well, once they get larger, they're subject to building codes anyway.
Right.
Good point.
Okay.
Can you go back to, sorry, just what was the height? We're moving them in a foot if it's above 16.
So on medium-sized lots, or on medium buildings, or what is it, it's a lot size, I think.
It was the peak,
Medium
right?
buildings, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, so for medium buildings on lots larger than 10,000 square feet, it's a foot after 25. On lots less than 10,000, after 16 feet, it's a foot.
Okay, so if the lot's bigger than,
That's the height
Yeah.
requirement. That's not the setback.
can you go, so the medium, okay, so you can go up to 25
So-
feet before
So for this
pushing
one,
it in?
so for 10,000 square foot, it's 25 feet is the maximum height.
Oh, maximum height.
So
Okay.
on a 10,000 square foot lot, if you're above 16 feet, then you have 1 foot of side yard setback.
See, I actually think that part's a wise protection for double stories. That's why I'm saying maybe instead of doing the 1 and 3, we do 0 and 1, because then you've slid it 2 feet over. And you have time to, not many people are gonna build a 30-foot tall structure, honestly. I mean, really. And if they are gonna build a 30-foot structure, they're gonna have to build it in a acre or larger, 30-foot tall, just logistically, right? I mean.
Yeah, but the point of having restrictions is not to guess on whether people are going to do it or not, because if people can do it, they're going to do it.
Somebody will.
Correct, but they would have to have a bigger lot than 21,781 square feet to do it.
Yeah.
But even the 25 footers, 25 feet is tall. That's very tall.
Correct. It's a 2-story, right? I mean, it's almost like 3.
No, that's to the peak of the roof.
Because we're to the peak of the roof now, right?
Yeah, peak of the roof.
It doesn't specify the slope of the roof, so, if you go with a 112 slope, you're only dropping maybe a foot.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, that's not what they were saying.
No.
They were saying.
You can, with a 16-foot door.
16-foot door, but your opening's got to be 18 feet.
And if you're trying to make the roof match your house, then you're stuck.
We build bridges at 16 foot. You're not gonna have a RV bigger than that. You're not gonna have 16 foot. Your RVs are only 12 feet. They're not that.
I think
They're not
I think
16
they're
feet.
12.
14-foot doors will work.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
then that gives you 9 foot from the top of the door to the peak of the roof.
Yeah.
So
For me, I'm almost feeling like the large, where we're pretty much a quarter acre, is just upping the minimum height before we start moving people back off the lot line. Like if we say, instead of moving back a foot, once it hits 16 feet, just say, if you're, I don't know, 20 feet, move back a foot, or even a little higher than that.
I mean, I actually think this does protect it reasonably, like in the 10,000 to 2170, 80, right?
That's what we all,
It's only adding, to go, like you're saying, to do a 2-story garage, really.
that's huge.
I mean, you're huge.
Crazy big.
I can't see you're gonna do that in a very small example like they were showing us. I really,
No.
I mean, I know we're protecting, but I don't see that realistic expectation. But I do see a lot of what you were originally saying, where we want to cover the RV. So to me, we should keep it as close to the fence as possible and just get a barely of RV in there, and we're set. The 2-story thing, this protects against a 2-story. I just think the problem is our baseline starts at 3 feet instead of at 1 foot, or even 0 feet. Maybe 0 is the right number. For every 16 feet you go up, from that point up, you get a foot. For every foot above 16, you're going a foot away from the property line.
I'd feel
And maybe
comfortable with like one.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we just say there is no setback. I don't know. You can't have your roof or somebody dropping on your neighbors. I'm trying to think of a way to actually not have to keep talking about this for the next 5 years.
Well, yeah.
drip line to drip line.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, for
it's
me-
it's not the walls of your.
Correct.
It's the drip line. Like
So
you
to
said.
me, I mean, we say, and maybe that's where we say you start at a foot.
Yeah, that's where I was going to
Put it
say. We
16
started at
feet.
a foot at 16, and then if you
And
go
then
18,
as
then you're
you
2
go-
feet away.
So you're
Every foot
every foot
higher,
you're
you're
3
foot
feet over.
further away. Yep.
By the time you went to an 18 foot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Then you're
that's
just like
me
4 feet
starting to be
away.
reasonable. You're giving up, you're choosing to go higher, you want to put a car lift in there, then it makes maybe more sense to have you further away from your neighbor anyway,
A
right?
19, 20 foot's going to fit an RV.
Yeah, exactly. And
But
get
the
it-
you're only
question,
3 or 4
the
feet
question
from the
I'm
side.
thinking of, do we stop pushing them into their yard at a certain point because of height?
No,
I don't think
we
so.
don't want them,
So
they're
another
going
thing to
higher than
consider
30 feet.
too
We don't want to
is-
stop.
Is
Yeah.
They're offset. We want to
not
discourage
looking
them
at
from
this
going too
from
high.
just a singular lot configuration, because we don't have singular lot configurations. We have neighbors, right? Neighboring lots. So if you push it to a 0, no setback on the side, then you have a 16-foot structure, because you have to stay below the 16 feet, right? Right up next to your lot, and your neighbor does the exact same thing, that breaks fire code.
Or it actually prohibits your neighbor from doing the same thing, because now they've got to be further away, and they have to build a fire-rated wall, which is increased expense
Right.
for them.
Well, maybe you say 3 feet, and then at 20, you start to increase it by 1 more foot.
That would be my other thing, is we up just like when they start getting away from the lot line.
The only reason I was trying to drop the lot line is
Yeah.
on the weird lots, like the
Well,
pie
that's-
shape, it lets you use that.
But that's what the exceptions are.
That's the
for.
special
that's what the
exception that
special
comes to us.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily, it doesn't say that, because it said the pie lots aren't the special exception, I
No,
believe.
there's a lot shape that was included in the,
Agreed, but that
But the
diagram
example was
says
the
it
reverse
doesn't
pie.
work. If you go to
Wow.
I gotta look at my packet.
so you look at the special exceptions, lot shape. The applicant's lot has unique characteristics which may include lot shape. So,
But what it's saying is a pie-shaped lot like that, I'm making sure everybody can see.
an
that
inverted pie.
Is
yeah.
not irregular. It's saying it is regular.
Then we need to
we
change
just
that
move
one.
that to the
Let's just
irregular
move that
then?
to the irregular then.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that one
Yeah,
is the limit.
I would feel
to the
like that's
issue, right?
irregular.
Well, let's move that to irregular. Put it-
In a
So it's a part of the
cul-de-sac?
special circumstances.
Yeah.
I
Go
would.
with that.
I would, because then it'd come to us and we could say that makes common sense. Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
What's
'Cause
your
like you
thoughts
said,
on that?
that's what
What's
I
your
feel
thoughts
like-
on that idea?
So
Right now, you have the pay.
Any pie shaped, whether inverted or not, is a special exception.
Yes.
Or maybe eligible.
Well, you just turn it upside
To
down.
me, it would be
and
called
it's-
an irregular lot.
Maybe eligible.
The same
I like
shape,
that.
you're just turning it upside down.
We're basically saying, take the
No,
pie
because it shows the street.
and put it up in this group.
It's
Which
related.
allows us
It's
to
in
actually
relation to
have
the
a different
street.
discussion of backyard, side yard kind of thing. Because then the setback,
Well,
it doesn't matter as much because you could try and take advantage of that wing, depending on how much it really wings out, right?
Right.
but, yeah.
I mean, that's, it creates a lot more,
There's a lot more of that than the reverse pie.
there's a lot more of those than a reverse pie, exactly. So there'll
But
be a
again,
lot
the-
more, you know, a lot, I think it's better to just establish standards how you want them.
Yeah.
Than to make special exceptions. That would be my preference. So if you want to have a reduced setback on all lots, then that would be my recommendation.
I agree with you.
Maybe that's what it is. That's
That's where I'm headed to.
and leave that, because you look at that, the street with, when it gets bigger to the back, yeah. Why do we need to see it if they meet some of these reduced setbacks now?
So where I feel is kind of as a compromise is the 3-foot setback, but then up the max height to 20 at the peak.
Then at that point, you start doing the
Then they
1
have
foot.
to push
additional.
into their yard.
But then that goes, if I'm understanding right, that would still make it so that you couldn't do the special exception for that pie. You'd have to be 3 feet away from the edge. At the front of the wing of the pie, right? If the pie is doing this, building a structure like this, that spot right there has to be 3 feet, which back here, depending on the angle of the pie, can be a
Oh, gotcha.
lot.
That's
And
where I
and that's what he's saying. I mean,
Yeah, that's where
I'll
I
use
think
my
we
father-in-law's
should-
lot, like, there's, in that angle, there's 25
So
feet.
rotate it so that it's parallel to the side yard and not the back.
But then you have the same problem
I
back
get it,
here.
but then your issue,
It's still the same.
it is, but depending on which way you place
build a
that.
pie-shaped structure.
You're gonna have that
You build
regardless.
a pie shaped structure, I like that.
That's what I almost feel in order to move on, we make the pie shape
Good job, Mayor.
a special exception just
I think so.
to move on with this.
Okay,
No, I think.
I'm good with that too. Maybe that is the right answer. Pie shape is the special exception.
Whether it's
And then we
reverse
can
or-
move on, and then we could have, well, I don't know what your thoughts are about the 3 foot, but then up the minimum max peak height to 20s before they have to start moving back.
And that's for, well, I would say that on,
That is
You've got a
pretty
little
tall.
6-foot fence next to a 20.
but that's for,
That's at peak, right? That's not the
It's still
sidewall.
tall.
So what I'm hearing,
Still be,
okay,
what I'm hearing is
what do you think? the
kind of
wall height
moderate
would be?
consensus is
let's get some
keep
consensus.
the
as
1
well.
and 3 feet.
16-foot wall height.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Keep the 1 and 3 feet.
That's pretty tall.
Keep, don't disconnect side and rear, tie them together, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's really no reason to have that.
Okay,
So that slash would be side and rear, right? And then the other thing would be that pie-shaped lots are an exception.
special exception.
And
And stay
In
out of
addition to
easement.
what's already been stated, the
they have the
special.
easement that's already there. But the corner lot,
Well,
what's everybody thinking on that?
but the corner lot is a part of the special exception.
It's not.
It is.
Not.
It's not?
That's
When
why
I'm
I'm
looking
saying-
at that, it should be, because the way I'm reading that special exception, it says, if you go to it, maybe I'm reading it wrong, special exception, page 1, lot adjacent to other commercial industrial land uses on at least 2 sides of the property. Maybe we clarify that, lot adjacent to other commercial, industrial, and streets on at least 2 sides of the property. Maybe that's the clarification on that last bullet, because that's the way I was reading that, yeah.
You like that more?
Which would you prefer? The setback, because I just think we should just tie the setback on the corner.
Yeah.
And
I
then
would
it's not
prefer
an
a
issue.
standard.
Huh?
I would prefer a standard versus an exception.
That's kind of where I'm at.
I'm a
And to
little
me, it's
stuck
1
there
and 3.
just because if it blocks a visual corridor, that's my only concern.
Well, there's,
It can't,
but it's in the back, it's not gonna be
Well, it's already
blocking.
set
a-
it can't
back
be.
Because it's side yard.
Yeah.
It's in the side yard technically.
If you use the side yard, though, it goes away. I mean, why not use the side yards again?
You can in a special, right, That's-
No, I mean, in every instance, from the front of the building back.
yeah. But you're.
Exactly, I agree.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, and then that was
We
the
should
other
add that one.
The other thing I'm hearing you say using the front of the house is what you were
Yes.
saying. right?
So the side yards are part of the back.
Side yard.
So you can build on the side yard if you have a big
So I think
side
we
yard.
kind of actually do have a consensus.
Have you had this room
Sure,
on
we're
the
confusing
space?
you, but I think I'm hearing a consensus kind of. So I'm going to try and restate.
All right, let's do this.
I'd love to hear consensus.
Are we ready? Let's go.
Let's hear this consensus.
So,
You can maybe ask it first, and then then you can make a motion.
yes, that's what I'm going to say.
All right.
The back of the lot, I'm trying to think of what we call it now. Can you go to that example? You have your graphic. I'm sorry to keep making you do this.
The rear yard setbacks?
Yes. We will start to define, instead of using your rear yard, we will use the front of the home. Does that make sense what I'm saying there?
From the front.
I want to make sure
Talking
you
about-
understand.
But that's a different area completely than what we're discussing.
No, hold on. What I'm saying is, I don't know how to use the right word. What would make it easy for you to understand that my intention is to take the green shaded, dark green shaded area down both sides of the side yard?
So including the side yards as part of the rear yard calculation.
Correct.
Yes.
That's what I want to say. What word do you want me to use as that?
But that's not part of this.
It's
Discussion.
one of the changes that I think we need to do.
That's changes a different area of how setbacks are figured out. This is
I totally agree.
it's
trying
not,
to
it's not
make
part of
sure
the
we're-
accessory structures.
So there would have to be another standard that would specify exactly what is measured as part of the rear yard, as part of a rear yard
Or we define rear
area,
yard, or
in calculating.
Or we define rear yard as anything behind the rear
front-
of the front of the home. It's a definition.
But
then
that's
whole different-
that's a whole nother area.
Then you're messing with setbacks, and that's going to be a whole thing.
That's a, yeah,
That's a global change.
that's outside of this discussion.
I'm talking for accessory building calculation.
Yeah.
So what word do you want me to call?
He would
Just
say
how big you can make the accessory
accessory
structure.
building calculation is based off of side yards and backyard.
He's trying to incorporate a particular lot that may have a 30-foot
Large
side yard.
Yeah.
Side yard and setbacks, then. Is that fair? The calculation includes side yard and setbacks? Does that give you enough to understand?
Is it side yard and rear?
Yeah.
That-
You're putting something there, you're calculating, using that.
Yeah,
For the
I'm just trying to
calculation.
use that as the calculation for the square footage.
Michael?
Does that violate anything that you're saying? I mean, we look at this two ways. We can give you the idea to have you go back and edit this so we can approve it, but we've done that a lot. Or we can give you a motion with this, and so I think you want the motion with it, but there's a lot of little tweaks we're gonna be changing, so I wanna make sure we're clear on.
So including the side yard is
So
purely
side
for
yard
these
and rear
percentages.
as
Perfect
as
example, that's what
calculation.
we're trying to do. We wanna include the hatched area.
Okay.
Get that on camera, wherever we need to, so that you can see.
Yeah.
It would be extremely unique. This is very different.
Just using it in the calculation for the square foot, the percentage, that's
Yeah.
all I'm trying to say.
We're not able to build on that area
Not
No.
just for the calculation.
No, they still have
But
to
you
follow
want
the
to be-
requirements.
Still
for-
have the
for building.
setbacks.
I personally think if you go to a corner lot, you do want to build on it, but that's a whole
Absolutely.
different, I mean, that's the whole purpose of a gigantic corner lot,
Right.
but whatever.
But the reason why the corner lots are often much larger is because typically the buildable area is smaller because you have that accentuated corner side yard setback. The accentuated corner side yard setback is so that any structure that's built or sited on that corner is now in line with the front yards for the rest of the homes down the block face. So as every home has, let's say, a 20-foot setback, you don't suddenly have a garage that's now 1 foot behind the property line.
I concur
And so
if,
that's why historically, in a conventional suburban development pattern, you always have these larger corner side yard setbacks so that you get those structures in line with what's happening on the rest of the
I
block face.
concur if it's where it's going housing and then the house's faces change and go a different direction. But if it's a standard house facing this way and house facing that way, it's truly just the backyards of everybody. And there is no, that's what
So
I'm trying
you're
to say.
talking about when you have just basically a corner side yard and another one, and you basically.
The
just have-
backyards are
just the
abutting each
block is
other.
just 2 buildings deep?
Yes.
Exactly, which is most, if you look at a lot of ours,
Yeah.
there's a few that you're describing what you're saying. A lot are typically only 2 deep because you're trying to maximize your density with your roads. So most of the time,
Yeah.
it's backyard against backyard. not backyard against home.
Right, but there's
Except for some weird
There's
configurations.
other
I get.
houses that continue down the streetscape. You're talking about a single block, but the blocks continue.
Yeah.
And so.
If we go look at the next
additional
applicant that all these people are waiting for us to get over with arguing this, that's showing the kind of
But at least that
development I'm
limits
talking
the impact that you were talking about a little bit.
Correct. So
Keep going.
We're good with side yard
going,
and
Adam.
setback.
But yeah, there's still the setback, right?
There's still setback requirements.
Just for the calculation.
Okay, then the next item would be, we keep the setbacks at 1 and 3 feet, so no changes there.
Okay.
We allow corner lots to go to use the 1 and 3 foot setback with the exception of easements.
Check.
Do you understand that?
So for a small structure, allowing it to go to 1 foot from property line on a corner lot facing the street?
Yes, off the street. So if this was a corner lot, I know it says 8 feet. If it was a small structure, that dimension could be 1 and 1 on your example that you're showing here.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So if the street facing side is on
We're assuming the
left,
street's on the left side of that page
so 1 foot, okay.
for the small structure. For the large structures, it's 3 feet plus your 1 foot growth for the height, like you have it.
Over
16 or 20?
over 20. Let's go to 20.
I
Over 20 feet.
don't know. I was talking to Jackson about it, and we were
What do you think?
I want an architect
the
to
side,
answer.
the side
Tall
wall.
Right there, that's tall. If you look at the wall, our higher ceiling.
But we're talking, but remember, the feet we're talking is now not the wall height, it's the peak of the roof, right, for accessories. We've redefined that.
Windows, yeah.
So we were talking about if the pitch, yeah,
Have
because
that right next to your fence. If your neighbor built
3
that.
feet.
I'm
I
actually
almost
okay with
think-
16. I was talking to Jackson about it because if it was 20, then the wall is potentially 16 feet
Well, how
tall.
about this? Let's just keep it the way they're proposing it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but allow it to be on a corner lot. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Keep
So
going.
you're good the way you are, except for allow it for a corner lot. So again, corner lot, it's 3 feet. If it goes higher, they need to slide to the right. Because in
Corner lot
reality, on a
facing
corner,
the
that,
street, for a large structure, medium large structure, you can have 3 feet setback
for a 16-footer.
adjacent to the street that's only 16 feet tall.
Correct, max height. If it's 17 feet, it's now 4 feet, right? It's just like your ordinance is saying, the way you're proposing.
I think that's a mistake.
Agreed. I agree with your opinion. I'm just
I
trying
know,
to
I
wrap this
know.
up.
I'm just saying that on a corner lot,
We're talking the peak, though. Talking the
it doesn't
peak
matter.
of the
You
roof.
could have a 112 slope on a roof. And that puts you at 15 feet for a 10-foot wide structure.
I agree. I think we should allow it.
Yeah. I don't have a
Still
problem
3
with
feet away.
So on a corner lot, you're gonna have a 15-foot structure adjacent to the sidewalk.
Assuming they can get rid of on a corner lot their easement, which they're not gonna be able to do.
So,
There's gonna be utility there.
right, so we do have a provision in our ordinance that if you get waivers from the utility companies, you can build closer.
Which would be the 3-foot max. So on the rare occasion that there
Right.
is no utilities, which never happens on a corner lot, on the corner, because it's by a road, they still could, basically it's a moot point, is what I'm trying to say. They're not gonna be able to get a waiver, because we know that the gas lines, the power lines, and all of the, one of those utilities are gonna be in that
True.
right away, 98% of the time. The 2%, you're right, it's 16 feet.
You're probably out in the.
To the
ag-
peak.
you're
So
probably
to
out
me,
to
you're only
ag
having a
area
12-foot
anyway.
wall, and you already have a
Yeah.
6-foot wall, so it's only 4 feet.
Yeah, you're not in your normal subdivisions. You're out in an ag lot.
So again, just trying to get you so we can get to moving past this issue. And then I believe that is all that I am hearing.
So what about the rear yard setbacks? Do we want those to increase as the height increases, or do we want those to just stay 3 feet regardless?
Tie it to whatever the side is doing, the rear is doing.
Okay.
To make it easy. Except for the other thing I did forget to say is that the pie-shaped lot would move into a special exception. So really, there's only 3 changes.
Okay.
Include the side, just one more time. Side, because we were all talking over each other. Include the side yard and setback in the percentage area.
Right.
include the corner lots, that it can go up to the property line, still keeping the easement, but that setback that we've already discussed and approved, or at least can come to a consensus on, and then the pie shape moves over. If that is the case, I make a motion to approve it, recommend approval of the city council with those three changes.
All right, we have a motion. Remember, we can always vote no, but this will be going to the city council. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Adam, a second by Brody. We'll go ahead and call for a vote. Brody?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes, only because I want council to see it.
Adam?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
All right, that is moving forward to city council with those three recommendations. All right, we will now move on to item 4.2, a request to approve an amendment to the Harriman City official zoning map for property located at 5652 West, 13100 South, from 2.93 acres. Well, you can read that. I'll edit it there.
Yeah, it's a long-
There's a long
it's a
one there,
mouthful.
so yeah, go ahead, Talia. Thank you for being here.
All right, yeah, so this is an application for a rezone. This area is just west of us a little bit on the corner of Main Street and Rosecrest. That's kind of to give you an idea of where that's at. Here's a zoomed in map of the zoning as well. Currently it's zoned 8.25 and 8.5. And those are the parcels that are included, that would be included in this rezone. So just some background, these parcels are owned by the Millers, and the purpose of this rezone is to eventually create a subdivision. This is kind of just a preliminary idea of maybe what they're gonna do, but eventually they'd like to create something along those lines. With this subdivision, eventually there would be a property swap with the Butterfields. So the top, more square-like red part of it would be traded for the longer rectangle more towards the south. Yes. So the south part would be included in the rezone while the other part would not. Here is the general plan map. So it is currently proposed that the west side of this area would be commercial and the east is low density residential. And that acreage we want to keep in mind as well, the 1.8 through to 2.5 units per acre. The applicant wanted to kind of stay consistent with this so they didn't have to do a general plan amendment or anything. Here's the proposed rezone, just kind of like the general plan map. That corner on Main Street and Rosecrest would be commercial, and then the rest of it would be the R110 zone, with that condition to stay in the 1.8 to 2.5 units per acre. Another thing to take note is that, let's see if I can draw on this, maybe. Okay, it's not gonna let me. But this area towards on Main Street, the public, or the right-of-way, over to the right, oh, yeah, no, over, and then up a little bit, that area, that dotted line. That is currently a right-of-way. The city is willing to vacate that, and there are the proper affidavits for both the property swap and the vacation of this, for this to be rezoned to this, to the R110. All these are the issues we consider when doing a zone change, and these the changes with both the R110 and to the R110 and to the C2 would be consistent with the general plan as we saw on that map, and there shouldn't be other issues. It does kind of, there are houses in that area, and there's a little commercial in that area as well. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation with the condition of the density, the 1.8 to 2.5 units per acre. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Will you go back to the map?
Which one?
The map. There we go.
This one?
What's just above parcel B next to parcel A? Is that the city-owned property right
That's
there?
the gas line,
gas.
that, what do they call it, the pig out, whatever?
Yeah.
The pig pole station.
Maintenance.
Yep,
Pig pole station.
pig pole.
That was,
It's the natural gas pig, and they pull it
Okay.
out there.
Any other questions for Talia?
Pig and pole.
Okay, we'll go ahead and thank you. We'll let the applicant come forward if there's any additional information you'd like to provide to us at this time. Go ahead and state your name as well for the record, please.
Sure, it's Alex Winder, 1169 West, Corradine Drive, South Jordan, Utah. First, I was on the Planning Commission in South Jordan, so I appreciate all your guys' time and the staff's time. I know it's not fun to be away from your families, so. This piece is kind of an odd-shaped piece, and there's a lot of history with boundary lines and stuff, and so I'm just here to answer any questions that you guys have, because I'm sure you'll have a couple.
Yeah. Is there any questions for the applicant? We will
I don't really have any at this time,
Yeah.
honestly. I will probably in a little bit. So.
wait till after, yeah. Okay, thank you. Before we have any discussion with the Planning Commission, I do want to go ahead and open it up to the public for any comments. So at this point, I will open up the public hearing for anyone that wants to speak. Go ahead and state your name as well. Thank you.
Gary Ballard. Can you put up the map again? Mine is not probably as far as the rezoning issue. I have issues with probably a previous planning commission that Grant Mines went through. Can you put them, oh, okay. On the map you show there's a little 15-foot section. These are the boundary disputes, and I haven't talked to the previous owners. I've talked to CJ. But I got hit with the $6,000 tax bill because Grant Mines created, if you look at the, is there a pointer?
That little weird thing right there?
Nope. Oh, sorry. Put it back.
I
Pause on
think
my
you
time.
can touch
Pause
the
on my
screen.
time.
You might be able to touch your screen.
I think you can touch the screen, sir. Touch the
You
screen.
touch the screen? So
Yes.
I have this lot.
Go for it now.
Help. Old man here.
Not working.
Where's the pointer? Where's it?
on mine.
That one?
That's the, I don't know if it'll show up.
It won't show up on the screens.
Does it show up there?
Yeah, the monitors won't show up on.
Can I just point there?
Sure.
Chase is tall.
Chase is tall.
My lot here is where the garage,
Can you move it to this one?
there's a little corner section top here, but there's a 15-foot swath.
Right by there, that weird looking piece. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, the notch in that lot 5.
Records go, I own that property. And
Here you go.
Grant developed all that property.
You should be able to draw.
The planning commission okayed it for a 15-foot. There's another little slot on my.
Go ahead and draw now. You should be able to touch now. Have that draw up for you.
So this little.
There you go.
That little slot right through there.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the fence line is right up there, but the county came in and hit 15 feet of my property, which went through my garage, that saying that Grant owned, but he never paid the taxes on it for 5 years. And he claims the county commissioner said that he had to do that. Or not county commissioner, but city planning commission, you guys, previously. So I just want to make sure that when this goes through, because it will, that gets addressed, that I don't get hit. So I got hit with another $600 bill for this year for taxes for that swap of property. So all those addresses need to be, and I haven't talked to the new owners, and I'm sure they will address this, but I just want you guys to be aware that when you're approving these developments, that you get everything at ducks in a row. Because unlike you, I don't have $6,000. Actually, I'm into it $10,000 now because I had to get it resurveyed. Wow. And I have to get all the neighbors to sign it a property easement.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyone else? You're getting your steps in today.
Lynn Egbert, can we have that same map up, please? I'm concerned about the zoning. I think is great. You've got half-acre lots in there. I think those are useless for the most part. All they do is use a lot of water in the backyards because with that. If you look at the adjoining ones on 12900, look at the amount of space that is there that's using up water, okay? But nonetheless, the big issue is 130 South up here, right there, okay? However JE did it, I don't know how he did it, but he was able to get the right-of-way that supposed to go down here, and traditionally it went all the way to the end of that property, and then it came down this way. And he got, I think he was picking on Butterfields, but he got this area right here totally vacated, okay? That's wrong. He shouldn't profit by that, but it is what it is. The issue here is 130 South, we get water all the way from 6225 West, comes down across Pioneer Road, all the way down, and traditionally, JE has wanted the water because there hasn't been enough irrigation water. So he's wanted all the water, you know, to water all that area. Well, you're putting in houses. And from when they put in Copper Creek, I've been involved with the fire department, and there is multiple times we went out to Copper Creek and mucked out basements. And then with Lafayette, the same thing happened, okay? And you're planning for the same thing to happen here. These lots at the end of 130 will be flooded. And then along with that issue, if the city is vacating this property down here, this right-of-way right here is 110 feet wide. It's 10 feet wider than most of the wide roads in Old Town Harriman. Okay, I've been after the city for over 5 years to come to a conclusion on that so that this property could be deeded back. Okay, the most they've said they needed is a 60-foot road. Really, a 53-foot wide right-of-way is fine. And they could make a cul-de-sac in there. I just hope you don't kick this thing down the road and you'll get them to solve all these problems.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to steal that.
Any other comments?
Randy Bowler, representing Bowler Development, the application. I live at 6663 South, 2200 West in West Jordan. First of all, I appreciate the commission saving the easy one for the end. As I've been here tonight listening to all of the others. I would just address in general, we're aware of the concerns that have been expressed. We've been working with the neighbors, we've been working with city engineering, and of course, prior to coming forward with plat approvals and so forth, all of those issues will be addressed. And so tonight, we're just looking for a rezone approval so we can continue forward with a plat approval process to address those. Any questions you may have for me?
Right now, we're taking comments, so thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other comments? Wendy, there wasn't anything online either, probably. Okay. Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and then close the public hearing. We appreciate all those that have provided comments. We did hear from the applicant as well, as I don't know if there's any additional comments from the applicant's representative as well, Alex, or anything like that you'd want to discuss as a part of that, but if not, we'll go ahead and just have some discussions then as a commission.
So, is there any comment from engineering as far as lot lines or water?
I mean, it's zoning
Yeah.
would be hard, right?
Yeah, this is zoning right now, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's the zoning process right now. So we've identified some of these things, and we actually put comments together. And then we said, let's just hold those off till we get to the site plan process. So that'll come next.
So, stay right there for a second. Blake, I really don't have a big issue with the zones. The roadways, I have an issue with. It seems like we're creating a shortcut and a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we
agree with that concept.
That's going to come in the site plan process. So
Yeah, like,
we've
to me-
identified offset intersections, and we still have to go through a city council process for any vacation that needs to happen. So we've identified some things. The vacation that comes out for the right-of-way on the road that would access Main Street, that one, we've looked at some offsets, and it actually makes some good sense to do that one. The other one that goes out to whatever, the west access, we want to maintain that access to line up with 130th. And then if it has to curve down, they'll have to work through that as they go through site plan, or if it goes straight, as Mr. Egbert was talking about.
Because I like the connection to 129, but I actually don't really like the connection between 129 and 131, personally. I think we need to really limit it somehow, or be creative and cul-de-sac it somehow.
And have the connection go down 130, east-west.
Well, I would say what I could envision is 129, just like whoever's moving their mouse down, and then stub off to the left there, and then keep going with a cul-de-sac there, and let the commercial be its own entity on the corner.
I'd take
I
the
would
road
just
all the way
advise
out.
the council to really, it's a word of caution that this is a rezone application.
Totally agree. This is
more. This discussion tonight should only be about the potential recommendation to the council on the rezone. As Blake identified, this would come back to you for site plan approval.
We'll note these comments.
I was just trying to say, we've had that happen way too many times where they still try and force the same discussion. So I'm trying to give a little bit of soft. Totally get it's a zoning, and I actually have no issue with the zone. I just want to make sure the applicant's prepared
A
for
lot
some
of your
solutions
things you're
and
talking
conversations.
about are exactly what we've noted. So we'll note these, and we'll, as we work through site plan, we'll make sure we identify those specific things as we bring it back.
Give some support to engineering.
So the one thing I was going to
Adam's
ask,
advice is in the minutes, and then we're talking about zoning, is that?
we're talking about zoning right now.
Okay.
Yep.
The one question I did have related to the zone is that weird little jog of the property. That's the other individual. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. I apologize. Gary's property. Do we want to include that in the zone, rezone? That's all I'm trying to say. In the recommendation going forward,
Oh, make sure it's in the right zone.
make sure that it doesn't make sense. We all know that doesn't make sense to keep it an island that
We just need to make sure it's in the right zone when we.
I'm just asking, now would be the time to adjust that line so that we don't have to come back for a little sliver in the future. And I don't know if the applicant has talked to, I don't know the staff's recommendation on that, but it does seem like a big problem if we just approve it because of that.
I looked at the county's records. It does indicate a different owner, and it's not included in the application, to my understanding. And so my advice would be not include that parcel, that little sliver, in your consideration for tonight.
Okay.
So that's what.
Okay. I do think it needs to be addressed when it comes back, is what we'll say.
Well, unless it's already in the right zone.
Yeah, it could be in the right zone.
Could be.
It could be in the right zone.
We'll see.
So we just have to, we'll see if that 15 feet's in the right zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have to wait until it comes in its own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. It's not a part of the application, so we can't address it
With
at this
that,
point.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Any other
Wait a
comments?
minute.
Hold on.
I'm ready to, but yeah.
So the right-of-way vacation coming off of Main Street, Blake, is that part of the rezone? Because that existing right-of-way would not be in the residential zone.
So
couldn't do it.
It looks like it should be part of the rezone, because if the council does decide to vacate that, and
Yeah.
in exchange for that other right-of-way where the road's proposed to be, then that would be able to be included in the lots. If you didn't include it, and they did vacate it, then they'd have to come back again for a rezone on that.
So
But
even if we approve the square piece, more or less square piece, you'd still have to come back for that vacated right-of-way?
No, he's saying
No,
by doing this.
if you
don't have
didn't include it in the rezone, and then they vacated it, then it would remain the A1 zone or whatever it is there.
It becomes moot if they choose not to vacate.
Gotcha.
And it-
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. It's
That's
still,
the other
it's
part
still
of it.
right away. It's still city-owned.
And we do include zoning on right-of-way.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, cool. That makes sense. Jackson, did you have anything? No? Okay.
You said, whoa.
Who's the owner of the property between that road that's showing and the church? And what is it zoned?
The church. The church owns that?
Wait, which piece are you talking about?
Between the road and the church.
Oh, so when the church came in, that was subdivided, or that wasn't subdivided, but it's one lot, and their plans had showed half-acre lots along that, and the church still owns it. I don't know if they've been chatting with them, but that was a discussion when we had our pre-application
But
meeting.
you would expect, we know it's a different application, but possibly them accessing off that road.
Yeah, that was the
what they
intention.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else?
Now I'm good.
Lauren,
I
you
think I'm
good?
good with this. Yeah, I'm good
All
with
right.
the zone.
I'll entertain a motion.
I would like to recommend approval to city council on item 4.2.
We have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Motion by, just clarify, Adam, and a second by Lauren. Go ahead and call for a vote with Daryl first.
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
And Brody?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any comments from the chair or commission tonight? I don't have any comments, I'm done.
One I would like to make, on the 3.2, there was a comment in the staff notes about some open space being, like, changed to the plating, like reduced drastically.
Oh, you're talking about the original approval being one contiguous lot, and then there had been some plating where the two open spaces got separated?
Like, how do we prevent that from happening? From what, I mean, I guess that's always been my concern, from what we approve to what the end product is. We've heard of a few, and, I mean, this isn't the first time we've heard of this happening. How do we prevent that from happening in,
I can
like, I
tell
don't know
you-
where in the process that happens.
I can tell you that over the last couple of years, and Sheldon can especially attest to this, he has been looking very closely at what was approved versus what we are signing when a plat has been presented to us for recording. And we've caught a number of issues. I don't know how things were managed when our former city planner was here. And when we identified this issue, Clint and Sheldon identified this issue, no one seemed to have any institutional knowledge as to why that decision was made. The only thing that we could determine is that there was such a grade difference that it didn't seem to be practical or valuable to the city. But I'm not sure if that was the justification for making a change. But right now, what we're doing is that whenever a final plat is up for review, staff is going and pulling the record of what was granted preliminary approval and comparing that with the final plat. So again, that's our practice
have been
today, and
changes.
we have been catching a number of things. Yeah.
I will, I was going to say, I'm going to make one more comment. I appreciate, just congratulations to Lauren on the election, and we will miss him and hope that he
Yes.
sticks around to the end of the month.
I'm not going anywhere, I gotta keep.
No, I know. You better stay on planning commission as long as you can.
Chase told me I could do both.
You can do both? Wait a minute.
Until he becomes mayor-elect.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
I think
I did want to offer Clint's apology for needing to leave early. He was wanting to go celebrate because you finally made a motion on accessory structures.
bet.
But his family was waiting for him to leave, so they were going out of town on a trip. So the soonest he could get out of here was after his item, so, yeah.
I have one that I wanted to add on, just as comments, just to review when we have large parking lots, the ability to add a safe walking,
Yeah.
walkability to those buildings.
And I think that's worth studying. I mean, you see that South Jordan, West Jordan. I don't know if Bluffdale or Riverton have been doing this, but it's not an uncommon thing to see in these larger parking lots to at least see one
Main
dedicated
sidewalk,
pedestrian
yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can study that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All right, future meetings on Wednesday, November 10th is the City Council, and Thursday, 2 weeks from today, November 18th, Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. That was Lauren. Yeah, Lauren.